19%. That's the national median gender pay gap, meaning across the country, for every dollar a man makes, a woman earns 81 cents. The gender pay gap is different to equal pay for the same job, which has been law for half a century. Instead, it indicates the median pay of men and women across organisations and can be more of a representation of who is in higher paying roles.
It's not about shaming, it's not about naming, it's not about saying men should be paid less. It's none of those things. It's about driving that change that we need to see in organisations to make sure that women are getting a fair crack at opportunity.
The data comes from the Workplace Gender Equality Agency. They've been collecting the statistics since 2013, but this is the first time they've published details for individual employers.
We're both embedding transparency as a key part of our approach to gender equality, but also progressing our understanding about equality in workplaces.
Some big brands had relatively small gender pay gaps, like Myer at 1% and Aldi at 5.3%. Of the big four, Commonwealth Bank had the largest gender pay gap, favouring men at nearly 30%, while Qantas had a 37% gap and Virgin 41.7%. The airlines say male-dominated high-paying roles like pilots and engineers contributed to the large percentage. More than 200 employers, including the Body Shop and the Manly Warringah Seagulls, failed to submit their data on time and are on the non-compliant list.
For employers, this does set a benchmark on their progress, and it's fair to say some are very focused on that, and others still need to turn their minds to it.
Aware Super has a median pay gap of 23.6%.
Certainly, while we have a female chair, a female CEO, we have 50% represented of a senior side. That shows in our data very gendered norms. So when we look at a lot of our service centre administrative roles, more than 60% of them are women. When we look at more specialist roles like financial planning and investments that tend to have higher salaries, more than 60% of those are in men. So that really hones in on what our next step is.
CEO Deanne Stewart says making employer data public will help address the broader problem.
That certainly is showing the pernicious issue that we've got in society and the gendered norms of roles that women are in versus men that are typically in higher paid roles that are earning often higher bonuses and other parts of their remuneration.
The A2 Milk Company has one of the highest gender pay gaps on the list, 40.5%. We understand the highest of ASX 200 companies. David Bortolussi is the Managing Director and CEO. David Bortolussi, welcome to 7:30.
Sarah, thank you for having me on the program.
Now, does this result come as a shock to your employees?
First of all, Sarah, just let me say that we really do support the great work that WGEA is doing in this regard, and the transparencies they're providing over gender pay gap, and the supporting the equality and the economic empowerment of women, which I think is very important for our society. In terms of our results, yes, we're disappointed in the Australian results for our organisation, which are inconsistent with our global numbers, and it's also inconsistent with our values and policies, which do really support a diverse and inclusive and equal culture within our organisation. Also, some of the great work that we've been doing on flexible work, as well as family-friendly benefits as well.
So how do you explain it then?
It is a bit of a surprise.
Sorry.
Well, so if I just provide a little bit of context to our business first before we get into the detail. So we are a international dairy and nutritional business. We're a New Zealand company listed on the New Zealand and Australian Stock Exchange. Our main business is the export of nutritional products, particularly infant milk formula, from New Zealand to China. We have a liquid milk business in Australia and liquid milk business in the US. So coming to our Australian business, that is comprised of our milk business plus corporate functions that support our global business. So we have no equal pay issues. We uphold our obligations there and treat that very seriously. It's really due to the composition of our workforce. And in essence, we have a higher proportion of men in higher graded roles and a higher proportion of women in lower graded roles.
So let's talk about your executive leadership team, for example. I mean, how many people on that team and how many of them are women?
I have 9 members on my team. 3 of those are women, the other 6 are men. And if I look at our board, we have equal representation of men and women on our board. and our chair is a woman as well.
So how do you explain the fact that for women in your company, there are fewer of them as you go higher up the ladder? What is the explanation for that? Because there's been lots of studies done on why this happens in companies, but why did it happen in your company?
I think it's our corporate functions, we've inherited more men in those roles. And I think that's been a legacy that many companies have inherited in such functions as finance and IT. But when I look at our manufacturing, sales and marketing organisation for our milk business in Australia, that's more balanced. And then the roles that have lower graded roles are in our field sales team, where we have a greater proportion of women that appreciate the flexibility that comes with those roles. And so I think what we really need to focus on particularly is attracting, retaining and developing more women into higher graded roles in our organisation globally. Now, our results globally are only 15% gender pay gap on a median basis, but the way the numbers are cut for WGEA in Australia, it's 40%. But we don't shy away from our responsibility to work on that.
You said that some of these were legacy issues, but since you took over, have you done enough to turn these numbers around?
Well, we're doing many things, which I can come to in a moment, but if I look at the appointments that we've made, so the most 3 recent board appointments, and I'm a managing director of the board as well, 2 of the last 3 appointments have been women. And if I look at our executive leadership team for our global business, and particularly focusing on the Australian component, 3 of the last 5 appointments have been women. And the next level down, there have been 6 appointments in the last 12 months, and they're equal women and men. So we're doing everything we can in that regard. It just takes time to move this, the balance or inequity that we have in that regard.
Well, given that you're sitting quite near the top, I wonder, have you given yourself a hard deadline for changing the setup of the company?
No, we're adopting more of a continuous improvement mindset to this. So last year we showed a 2% percentage improvement. If I look at our numbers more recently, there's another 2% improvement. But I appreciate that we are a bit of an outlier because of the way that we've organised our business globally. So we'd like to achieve more, Sarah. It's very difficult to set specific deadlines. But we do have, as a policy, our policy is that we have at least 40% representation of women and men in all roles or grades of roles across the organisation. That's something we strive to achieve.
When studies have been done on this topic in the past, they often identify hiring practices as one of the biggest problems, pathways to promotions, but also hiring practices. Have you changed the way you hire?
We have outsourced our recruitment function to one of the top global search firms who have some of the best practices in this regard. The person who looks after our account with us is a woman, and they adopt very strict methodologies in that regard with our briefing as well to ensure that we have the right mix of candidates for the role, and also using tech like gender decoding on job advertisements to ensure that we're early in the funnel, that we're not adversely impacting women applying for those roles.
Tell me something, is there a financial return for a more equal workplace?
It's difficult to measure, but I fundamentally believe it is, because we want to ensure that our team reflects the diversity of our global organisation and the women that are in that, plus our consumers. And I mentioned earlier that the biggest component of our business is the export of infant milk formula to various countries around the world. So, they're our customers, and we need to reflect that. And women often know more about that than many of the men in our organisation.
Now, given where we are today, though, with the number that we've just reported on, how would you persuade a talented female executive to join your company?
Well, I think we do offer I might be biased, but I think we do offer a great diverse and inclusive culture in our organisation. And from a flexibility point of view, we've really worked, like many companies have, on the flexible arrangements for women in our organisation to cope with that. And then we're also focused heavily on family-friendly benefits. And I think there's some unique things that we do that other organisations may not do. So, for example, we pay superannuation right throughout parental leave, paid and unpaid at full rates. We offer, very generous early and late stage pregnancy loss benefits. And then we also offer women's health leave for such things as fertility treatment or managing the symptoms or treatment of perimenopause or menopause. So some of those more leading areas I think we offer as well.
One of the questions raised today when all this information came out is how you get to real answers as opposed to PR. And I'm not accusing you there of trying to spin an answer. But at the same time, you've got a business that's heavily involved in China. China's going through a slowdown. It's a challenging time. How do you stop these issues being put on the back burner when business gets tough?
Our business, we have so many stakeholders in business now. It's not just about selling product and making money for our shareholders. We have so many responsibilities to our team in terms of diversity and inclusion. We have incredible responsibilities to our planet in terms of the sustainability objectives that we have as well. So managing a public company these days, or even a private company or any organisation, there are so many stakeholders that you have to have regard to in developing your business. So we place as much emphasis as we can on all these areas, as well as performing the core part of our business, which is the provision of nutritional products to our consumers around the A1 protein-free difference, the A2 proposition.
We like the fact that you fronted up today when you came the top of a list you didn't want to come on top of. We'll speak to you this time next year. David Bortolussi, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.